Welcome to the Heart of Money podcast, where we discuss the personal and emotional elements of money and the impact that money has on every area of your life. I'm Austin Black, a personal finance coach that helps couples overcome their fear and frustration of financial management so they can take complete control of their money. What started as a desire to learn the fundamentals of money management has turned into a passion for helping couples work together to achieve financial success and strengthen their relationship with each other. Whether you're looking for the best strategies to manage your money as a couple, or you're tired of struggling to gain traction and want to overcome the fear and frustration associated with finances, I'm here to help, and this show is for you. Ready to learn more? Then let's talk about the heart of money. Well, most people think that in order to become debt-free and have financial security, you have to either make a lot of money or have a very restrictive lifestyle. And folks, I'm here to tell you that neither one of those is true. In fact, I have a training that's going to walk you through the financial freedom blueprint of how to accomplish your goal of being debt-free and having financial security without the need for a huge income or restrictive lifestyle. I'm only offering this training once a month live, so be sure and check it out for my next class so you can come learn the secrets, the tools of the trade, the strategies that I teach clients on how to get on the same page with their spouse, create a plan for their money, and accomplish their financial goals by managing their behavior. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I cannot wait to have you at the next class. So head on over to freedommoneycoach.com/training. You can sign up for free and join me for my next live masterclass on the financial freedom blueprint. That's freedommoneycoach.com/training. I'll see you guys next month. Hey folks, welcome back to the Heart of Money episode 89. I am your host, Austin Black, joined by my good friend and fellow coach, Jessica Pratt. Jessica has a passion for helping people make confident spending decisions in order to save money that they have left over at the end of each month. So they can either save it, invest it, manage risk, have more fun, whatever they want to do with that. And as she saw that this was an area that was often overlooked and oversimplified in traditional financial planning, so she opened her firm, which I hope I'm going to get the name right, WyoU Financial Strategies. If that's wrong, correct me. But that's what she did to help make her clients have more success with their money. So Jessica, welcome to the show today. I'm glad to have you on.
Thank you. And so the name is actually WyoU Financial.
Well, I was going to say that for no, that gets too easy.
Yeah. And so it's actually a kind of a play on two words, so Wyoming. Often a lot of people use just Wyo for any kind of names just because it brings it back to Wyoming. And then if you say it phonetically, it's spelling YOU for you, because you have to own your financial situation. You know, we as advisors and coaches can help guide you and try to walk with you as much as we can. But ultimately, you're the one that has to get up and do the work that we're asking you to do and keep the money where it needs to be and make those decisions. So that's awesome. Where that name came from.
So I think it's so cool that you're from Wyoming, because obviously it's the cowboy state. I'm a cowboy. You've got an elk in the background. So we got a lot of things in common outside of money, which is a lot of fun. We really just kind of met each other here a few months ago.
Yeah.
And, are developing a good friendship. So tell me how you got started into this, because I know from previous conversations, you're kind of off on your own doing this. How did that all come together, and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so I hope we have enough time. So this actually started back in 2008, was really my first experience with really taking control of my own financial situation, but I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I was going out with my roommates, and they were all having drinks and going out to dinner, and I was sitting in the background being very stressed about money. It was all on me. Everything that I was bringing in was working or going to school. And so I thought, well, I need to know how much I can spend going out without shooting myself in the foot for the bills that are going to be coming up until our next payday. And so what I did was I created just sort of a checks and balance system to make sure that I could figure out what I had left in my checking account, and then what bills I still needed to pay with that money. And then the rest was for groceries and for fun. And so that's where it started. And then I also remember watching a newscast. And there's a guy who had made about $750,000 a year. 2008 hit, and he had to go deliver pizzas because
Oh my
he was
goodness.
completely wiped out. And I just thought, how on earth can you make almost $1 million a year and have something like this happen and have nothing to show for it? And I
Yeah.
always thought to myself, that will not be me. And so without even realizing it, I had sort of set the stage for my own financial future. And then just going through the process of, getting married and having a kid, and then my husband going to school. And it was like we came out on the tail end of that with his first real great job, sitting in a lot of debt. And I had the opportunity to be able to be a stay-at-home mom, but I also wanted something for myself, and I really wanted to tattoo. That was a dream of mine, to learn how to do that. Well, with our debt and everything, it just wasn't feasible. So I had to go problem solve how to get out of debt and free up that money to learn to tattoo. And that
Yeah.
was my first financial planning that I did full on. Had no idea what I was doing. To me, it was just solving a problem and figuring out how to make it all work. And then after moving back here to Wyoming, I decided, I want more. I just have these other goals that I need to sort of finance. And that's what led me into financial coaching. I found that. I thought, oh man, I can actually get paid to help people sort of navigate how to
Yeah.
make everything work. And here I am 5 years later. I went through and got my licensing for investments, and working in that for really the last 4.5 years is what led me back to financial coaching, and really going back to the budgeting piece and saying, this is where people really need help, because a lot of people just don't naturally think like this. So they don't know how to create their own system and their own plans, and then just use that as fuel for the rest of financial planning.
Yeah. That's awesome. It's so cool to me how each coach that I talk to, they either ran into something that was difficult financially and they had to get out of it, or they wanted to prevent something bad from happening financially.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that says a lot about society, honestly, because how many of us are in one of those situations but don't actually know what to do, or how to get out of it, or maybe don't believe that's possible. That's one of the reasons why I coach, because people just, they think that's the way it's supposed to be and that's the way it's going to be. And there's kind of this discrepancy, excuse me, in knowing what reality is versus what you believe. I
Right.
think is a big difference.
Yes.
So it's always fun for me to hear the story of, okay, was there a financial struggle, or were you just trying to do better? Kind of what encapsulated that journey to coaching. So it's really interesting how you came about that, and then especially combining that with the investment side, which I know is kind of a sensitive topic for you, but it's something that I run into a lot. So I want to address this real quick.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but a lot of times I hear people say, well, you're an investment advisor, right? Because they hear financial coach and they kind of
Mm-hmm.
pair the two together.
Yes.
I know they're two very different roles. I think you kind of believe the same thing. How do you distinguish what those two are in your own career?
So that has been extremely hard. And actually, that's what I've been trying to figure out for really the last 2.5, 3 years, because what I did for myself, I always just said it was financial planning, right? I make money, I'm making a plan with the money, and then I make the money do the thing to get to my goal. To me, that's financial planning.
Mm-hmm.
Well, stepping into the investment world, what I traditionally see is financial planning with investable assets. And that's really where sort of the line gets drawn. So if you're saving for a down payment for a house, it's like, okay, well, great. That's like on your goal list, but we're not necessarily going to walk you through like, how do you actually save for that? What account do you put it in? So it's actually been very, very difficult for me to separate it. And in my practice, I still don't really separate it. Everything is under the umbrella of a financial planner. It's just I approach it from a coaching standpoint first, and it's all about the systems and the processes. And then a very small portion of what I do is more of the investment discussion, mostly because a lot of the clients that I work with are accumulators. So they're more focused on what am I doing on the day-to-day to make sure that that money goes into the account that I need it to. And then it's sort of just growing in the background on a indexing style approach. So I think the industry as a whole, what we need to do is better define ourselves in our business individually to be able to show people how we're different from each other, because you think financial advisor, you think, oh, they're going to help me with investments, but they're also going to help
Yeah.
me do this other stuff. Then you go sit
Mhm.
down with a financial advisor and they really focus on the investments. And I have heard from so many clients that they're a little disheartened by the fact that all they're worried about is taking those assets under management. They don't necessarily want to help with anything else, but the clients
Mhm.
want the holistic picture. So I think as an industry, if we can just say, this is my zone of genius, I really am really good at managing the investable assets. That's what I do, and that's where I'm going to focus. If we need to bring somebody else to help with those other areas, great. I will be willing to bring that in either as part of my team or refer you out to somebody who does that. But I think on a professional level, we need to make that distinction and own up to what we do and what we don't do and make that clear to the client. Because there is so much overlap, on a spectrum of financial professionals, we've got all the way down to financial therapists, all the way
Mhm.
to investment advisors and retirement planners. And it's such a spectrum on what areas you actually help in. And there's certainly some licensing cutoffs, but it's so gray and so muddy that it's up to us that we have to do that for the clients, I think.
That's such a great point, and I haven't even really thought about that myself, because what I see a lot of advisors doing is, like you said, combining kind of the financial education and planning with the investment side. I know I personally, my specialty is helping people figure out how to respond to, understand, and manage their money effectively so that they are ready to start making investments. But there's a lot of work that has to be done from a mental, emotional, and just mathematics standpoint before you're ever ready to contact someone for the investment side. And what I have told people is, advisors focus on products, coaches focus on progress. We are geared up to help you get ready and take action and get traction, so that whenever it's time to look at what investments do you need and where do you want to, or how do you want to retire, and all of these long-term goals, that you are prepared to make those decisions and feel confident in who you're going to be working with and where you're going to be. And I just thought of that on the fly, so I'm really excited about that response.
Nice. Now you need to
But
just
it's
go
the
back and write that
reality
down.
of how I separate myself from advisors. But I think you're right in that coaches need to distinguish this specialization that we offer, just as advisors are very specialized and very, very good in what they do. And frankly, I
Right.
think depending upon where you are within your financial journey, you're going to need both, right? Neither
Yes.
one can fully service in most cases. I know there's some advisors out there that can do the coaching side, and some coaches like yourself are experienced in the advisor side, but that's a minority. So I really, really appreciate you identifying that each needs to work on distinguishing, specializing, and providing service so that they can really benefit each other in the long term, I think.
Yeah. And just like what you said, that really most people need both. And that's why I have such a hard time distinguishing it myself, because I've worked with people who have tons of buckets of, or tons of money in those buckets of money, but that's not solving their problem. That's not making them feel financially secure. It's being able to manage how the other things go to keep that
Hmm.
money in the bucket.
Yes.
And without both pieces, it's not a holistic structure, and it doesn't, there's always a weak link somewhere. But we as a society have pushed so much on, financial security being incorporated by having those investments in those buckets of
Hmm.
money, that the other piece of actually managing it on the day-to-day side of things and how you're spending and how you're saving and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
that's left a hole in the security picture. But we don't really address that from an advisor side of things. It's kind of like, well, that's for them to figure out because I'm over here,
Yeah.
which is, again, just being really clear with your clients about that. That's fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's, I think, even looking at from the client angle, if you don't know any different, your assumption, I would imagine, would be, okay, in order to be financially secure, I need to be investing money, right? And to them, that's savings for them, right?
Right.
They're going to try to reduce their expense. They're going to try to get their debt paid off if they have any. But then beyond that, they want to save through investing. And not everyone obviously is excited about investing. Some people I know just put the money in a CD or in a money market account, and that is their saving investment goal. But by and large, most people want to be actively investing because that's what they've been told. So, but they've been taught, that's what they've
Yeah.
seen on the news, online, everywhere, is you need to be invested. And that's where
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get financial security. But then there's this gap of, okay, but am I ready to do that? Am I prepared? Do I have the right habits in place? Do I need to be investing now or 5 years from now? Walk me through a little bit, because you deal with both. Whenever you got a client that comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to do this," but they're not ready for that yet. What can they be doing?
The biggest thing is, if they're not ready, is we need to explore what is holding them back. Because what I find is it's mostly buy-in, because they're not really sure. They're like, I know I'm being told to do this, but I don't really either see the value in it, I don't understand it, or I'm just not quite there yet where I'm comfortable putting the money in there. And so I'm not bought into it. But by having somebody on both sides of the coaching and investing, what we can do is give that, again, that more holistic picture, because unfortunately we don't have all the time in the world, and waiting 5 years could end up making a big impact on your overall outcome, because time is, part of the investment picture. And it's such a big part of it that, they say the best time to invest was yesterday. Well,
Right.
if I don't do it, then what happens? So it really is about just figuring out where the client's at, and can we get some investment going so that it's starting to grow and start building the habit of putting it away. But can we do it in a way that isn't taking from all the other pieces? So what I've seen a lot, and actually I've heard this a couple of times from clients themselves, is, oh yeah, I'm putting 15% or, even more into retirement because I'm playing catch up. But then they have to call and take money out of the investment account because they don't have an emergency fund and things like that, because, again, the security is over here in this investment bucket, and they kind of forget about these other things that are really important to your security too.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really about helping that client find the balance for themselves and what's actually going to keep them going, and then trying to progress it to where they need to do. And if they need to play catch up, trying to get them to that point where they can do that. But you have to get them bought into it to begin with, or they're never going to do it. They're going to stay at that base level where it's like, 2.5%, because that's what my match is, or whatever.
Yep. So let's switch gears a little bit, because I think we could talk about this all day long. But that there's a lot of other stuff that I know you are really skilled and passionate in. So, in your bio, you talked about how you help people just understand the spending and saving habits that they need to employ and embody. Obviously, with your background, that was kind of where everything developed from. So walk me through a little bit of how your past experience allows you to help other people just get a good handle on those habits and that management style, so that they can make those good decisions.
Yeah. So the first thing I always tell people is you have to know your numbers. It is really hard to make a sound decision that you're really not excited about, that you're really confident in, without knowing what's going on with your picture. So what I do, the first thing I want to help clients with is understand what their lifestyle costs are costing them now. So collecting that data. And this is actually one of a big hurdle that I see with a lot of people too, is because it's so overwhelming to think I have to look through my bank account information. I have to sort of own up to the way I've been spending. And so it's just easier not to dig into it because it's so overwhelming. So they never even get started. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that I will do is I will actually sit down with them. I just did this with a client, and pulled 3 months of transactions right out of their account, put it in a spreadsheet, and we went line by line by line for the first month, just to see what was going on and what categories. I'm not looking necessarily all about what were they doing. I'm looking at what is repetitive and sort of analyzing it and saying, okay, what do you need to continue paying for? And then we can make some adjustments on those overall numbers. But my big thing comes from just knowing your numbers. And that's the first piece that I help the clients understand is, what are the numbers that I need to be paying for? what are the ones that are going to bring value to my life and what's going to help me grow into, the beautiful life that I want to have. And then we set that foundation as a sort of a baseline template for the rest of their finances. And that's what my experience comes from, is that's what I developed back when I was in college and I was living with roommates and wanting to go out to eat, was this baseline template that was like, no matter what paycheck I'm looking at, I know exactly what bills need to be paid with that paycheck. And then therefore I can determine what else I can spend. And so that's actually I've done that every single paycheck since I developed it in 2008. I've never missed one. Sometimes I'm a little bit late, but that's because I know my numbers and I can just mentally sort of keep track until I get it down on paper. And it's incredible as I've been helping my newer clients develop the system, and we use my base system and then we tear it apart and design it the way that they need it. Being able to get them back on track when they fall off because they've got the base information there. It's like all we need to do is sort of backtrack a little bit and figure out what we missed. It's incredible because instead of having to start all over and be overwhelmed all over again, you've got something that you can go back to and be like, okay, let's just look off this and then kind of go from there. So I think because it's something I do day in, day out, it's something that has helped me go from I think we were making $18,000 between my husband and I when we first started because he was in school and everything, to making what we make now as a couple is just, it can really range. I've actually just put my kids on the same plan. So they're making $15 a week, but the process and the idea is what's actually teaching them how to manage it all. And it's been an accumulation of my doing it myself over, almost 20 years.
And I think that is something that I've talked about a lot on this show. People don't realize how big a role consistency plays in financial management.
Yes.
From the standpoint of budgeting, of making your spending and saving decisions, from the standpoint of honestly anything, investing, whatever the case is. The most success comes from consistently doing whatever you're supposed to be doing. Because how many times have people started a budget and done it for 6 months and got tired and quit for 3 months and then realize, oh, hey, we're spending too much. They come back, they do it again for 6 months. And there's this ebb and flow because they're not consistently doing the work and the tactics and the strategies. And obviously there's something probably wrong in what their strategy is. They were having a hard time staying with that.
Right.
Why that should come to you and me. But outside of that, if they were to consistently do that every single month for years at a time, which seems like probably a big daunting task for a lot of people if they have not either had success with a budget or have done a budget, that just seems like a lot of work probably to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I got to do this every single month for the next 40 years. But to your point, and I've experienced this too, when you do something after X amount of time, let's say 2, 3, 5 years, whatever it is, every single month, it becomes so stinking easy.
Yes.
That you know where you are. It's a system. It's a pattern. It's a routine. I was talking to a client the other day and they were asking, how often do you keep track of your expenses? Like, well, I do a weekly update. And they're like, I can't imagine going that long. I've got to do like every single day. I'm like, if you can, fantastic. Every single day is just amazing. I was like, I'm to the point where even if I don't do it that often, I still know where I am because I've been doing it every single week for the last 10 years, basically. Right. So you get into this groove where it becomes a part of what you do, becomes a pattern, a process. You don't really think about it. And even whenever you don't do it that often, you still know where you are and you still have that control and that handle of, hey, I know how much we have to spend, even though I haven't looked at the budget for the last 2 weeks. I know what I have spent during that time.
Right.
And it all falls into place, I feel like.
Now, I know with busy families and parents and kids and everything, it can be a little bit harder because mentally it's hard to track everything that's going on when you got kids in sports and you're eating out because You don't get done with practice until 7 o'clock, and then you've worked till 5, and the last thing you want to do is come home and cook dinner.
Right.
That can get a little overwhelming. But again, then it's like, okay, we know this is such a busy time for us. We need to problem solve for that and create something that works a little bit better, or just refine our process with
Yeah.
something that works a little bit better. And I
And
think,
I would almost kind of be a devil's advocate on that too, because to your point of if people feel like they're too busy, my question is, are you too busy to manage your money or are you too busy to lose control? Because
right,
if you're not keeping track of that, where are you going to be in 3 months from now because you were too busy to look at it? You're going to be
that
a lot worse
is,
off.
I talk a lot about all these hurdles that people have to jump through to really get going. And it is so daunting. It's just, there's so much that's so intertwined with finances. And I can
Mhm.
understand why it's overwhelming. I mean, I'll go do groceries is not one of my favorite things to do, writing, my dinner list and then creating the grocery
Mhm.
list. And I hate it. And I'm like, God, this must be what people feel like when they're dealing with their finances.
Yeah.
But to me, I love budgeting. Give me budgets. I can write those all day long. And when I say budgets, I mean a spending plan system.
Mhm.
It's not just numbers on a paper.
Right.
But I think time is one of the hardest. Time is everything,
Mhm.
taking the time, getting the habit set aside where it's like, I'm doing this consistently every month. What I'm finding is the more people I'm working with, the more space I have to allow them for that time. So if they
Mhm.
can't do it on their own, it's like, you know what? We've got the appointment set aside. If this is what we have to use our time for, is for you to get the stuff done that needs to be done for you to make progress. That's what we're going to do.
Right.
And that's becoming a really big piece of how I coach, is just allowing for that time for things to happen. If I need to sit there while we make calls together, we're going to sit there and make calls together. If we need to do
Right.
dinner planning, we're going to do dinner planning, whatever it takes to solve the problem of what you need to get done.
Yeah. And I think that's the reason why a lot of people do come work with us or work with the coach is
Mm-hmm.
they don't have the time. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to mess with it. They don't understand it. They're afraid of it. All these things,
Yes.
but yet they still know if they don't, something bad is going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's facing that fear and that frustration of this isn't fun. This isn't easy. This is a pain in the butt that I despise. I want to avoid. It's causing friction. It's causing frustration. It makes everything else in my life a difficult scenario. And that's why I need to fix it. So I
Yes.
got to face it head on. I've got to take the steps to get a handle on it, understand it. And I need someone who can help me do that. Boom. Jessica and Austin show up in the picture with
Right.
expertise to do that.
Yes. And
But
I
to
think
get
more
to
in,
that point, there has to be, and I'm speaking kind of to the audience in this regard to encourage you, there has to be this acknowledgement that I need to do something hard because this is
yes.
hard. But it's going to be harder if I don't do anything about it. In fact, I just did a post on Facebook here a couple of days ago asking which is scarier, to not know what to do or to know how hard it's going to be and still take action.
Mm-hmm.
Because it really comes down to those two things. Whenever you're faced with a challenge, an obstacle of this isn't fun, this isn't easy, but I need to get this needs to change. You can either ignore it, like, okay, whatever it is, we're just going to deal with it. Or you can say, what's it going to take to make this change?
Yes. So that's actually, I always talk about the game of money.
Hmm.
In coming out of high school and whatnot, you can choose not to really ever go back into history. You can choose to not use the algebraic equations that you
Hmm.
learned, but you do not get a choice in finances. So you can either choose to ignore it and do nothing and let everything happen to you and be very
Hmm.
reactive, or you can choose to be proactive and say, you know what, it's just another problem that I need to solve. And then if you start looking at it as it's just something else that I need to figure out,
Hmm.
it's not an instant solution that I'm going to change tonight. It's a process, and I need to learn it, because guess what? I don't get a choice whether I want to play or not. I'm playing the game. It's just how well do I want to play it?
Yeah, that's really good. And I even, because one thing I talk about a lot that fits in right with that, a lot of times, like you say, we let life happen to us.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes with financial implications, whether that be the fact that we are very busy and do have to eat out a lot, or spend a lot of money in gas, or whatever the case is, whether that is the fact that we choose to eat at home a lot but eat really nice food, whether that's the fact that we like to travel and we spend money on vacations, whatever the case is, we let life happen to us a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
And our money will only do what we make it do or
Yes.
what we let it do. Those are the two choices that we have to pick between. If we let life happen, because money affects every area of life, guess what? We're letting our money just whatever.
Yep. And it will disappear.
Versus if we take that control and say, okay, this is the life that we want to live, meaning this is how we want our money to act and behave. And that's a big shift. That's a big mindset shift that I know you find I run into a lot with clients of, why are you in this capacity? Well, it's because you're not taking control.
Right.
That's a little bit of a burn sometimes, but it's also an encouraging reality that you can take control.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's in your capacity and in your ability to live the life that you want because you are managing your money that way that you want.
Right. I think that's people get stuck in this. Well, I have to do this. Well, I have to go to this specific job because I need this money. It's like, well, you don't need really. I mean, you can take your bills and you can throw them in the garbage and you cannot pay them. There's there's things that happen to you if you don't do that. But literally, that's a choice you have. You can just stop paying things. You can stop going to work and stop making money. You might live under a bridge in a box, but that's actually the choice that we have. And it's sort of a power that we've given away, saying, it's too hard. I don't want to deal with it. Somebody else can either deal with it or I just won't deal with it. But you're giving so much power away. And it's tough to sort of jump on board to something that you don't like to do. It's not a natural knack for you. No, I'm probably one of the few people that love and just could sit and talk about money all day long. But the reality is, like you said, you can let it happen to you or you can do something about it.
And that sentiment, we say it about money a lot, but honestly, it's everything in your life. Like you say, you can make a choice for every single thing. I love studying successful people. I love following people who, have done well in business, have great family lives, are strong believers in Christ, or all these things that just they have a good life. And it's the life that they have chosen.
Yes.
And we so often succumb to, like you said, letting things happen to us or letting life take place or just the bills that we incur, the things that we do. Well, guess what? Like you said, we don't have to do any of that. But regardless, in any area of your life, it's always a choice of yes or no. Does this benefit or does this not? And I hope that people hear this and are empowered and inspired, because a lot of times we feel like we are forced to either do things a certain way or live with the consequences. Neither one of those, in my opinion, is right. We can either choose to choose to go down a certain way, which will end up in consequences, or we can choose to follow someone else's rules, or we can choose to make the things that we want to happen. And that is where success is found. So I want to encourage, I want to inspire, I want to empower people to believe that the choice is always yours. It may not be an easy choice. It may not be a fun choice, but it's always your choice. So if you are frustrated with your finances, if you're frustrated with your career, if you're frustrated with your marriage or your family or just your personal life or whatever is happening around you, make a choice to change something so that you can experience the life that you want.
Yes.
If you have a hard time doing that, find someone who can help you do that. Find a life coach, find a financial coach, find a marriage coach, find someone who's been there, done that, has the stories to tell and the success to prove it, because that is where you will ultimately win and be satisfied, in my opinion.
Yes. And I think with so much going out and so many opinions out there, it's often hard. What do I do? Because everybody's telling me to do something different.
Amen.
And we also don't really teach, okay, well, just because somebody's saying to do it X, Y, and Z doesn't mean you can't do it X, Y, and P. There's right. There's ways to customize these sort of set standard way of doing it, but people don't really know how to problem solve because we're not taught that. We're taught just follow the rules and go with it.
Mm-hmm.
If not, like you said, then there's these consequences.
Just go up and shut up.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yes, I hope that people do listen to this and go like, oh, so what I'm doing might not be wrong. I might not have really the key pieces that I need to make it work for me, but what I'm doing is right for me. It's just I need to figure out how to do it a little bit better so that it aligns with myself.
100% preach it all day, sister.
Yeah.
So what's one thing that you would like listeners to know or to understand or to learn from our conversation today that we haven't already covered?
That we haven't already covered. That it really comes back to the time that you can't get yesterday back. So you need to get going on whatever it is today. It's going to be hard, but just start with one piece. What's the very first step you need to take? Is it doing some research? Is it making a call? Is it talking to a parent or a trusted relative? Start having the conversation so that you can start making progress and being, I guess, vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Being willing to say, you know what, I am struggling with this, because guess what? 98% of the country is probably struggling right along with you. And that's, I think we feel so ashamed that we're not where everybody else is, which, is Instagram and Facebook. And so who knows what's actually going on behind the door, but we're kind of scared to share where we're really at because somebody might judge us. And it's like, find somebody who's not going to judge, find somebody who's going to help teach you and be like, that's okay. Because what I've learned is that it can take somebody hearing something said in 4 or 5 different ways before it clicks. Mm-hmm. And maybe it takes 4 or 5 different people to tell you something for it to click in a way that actually helps you align what you need to do. So don't be afraid to reach out and talk to people and ask for help.
Yeah, love it. Well, where can folks connect with you, learn more about what you do, work with you, follow the Jessica Pratt that I've gotten to know? Where are you, Jessica?
Well, so I am on Facebook, and it's at JPWYOU. And then my web address is www.WyoUFinancial.com. And on there, you can find some links to sign up for brainstorming Q&As, and my cell phone is on there, so you can give me a call there. But it's reach out to me, make a call if you're in town here in Wyoming, just find me and passing through. I try to do days where I'm down at coffee shops and I have open brainstorming sessions. So if you happen to catch one of those, I'll be there, and I just love to talk. So let's connect and see what we can do.
Awesome. Well, Jessica, thanks so much for taking the time to be on today's show.
Thank you for having me.
Visiting and sharing. It's always fun to talk with other coaches, and I think you bring such a unique perspective in your experience and your background with the investments and with the coaching side. And it's always a fun time to talk. So I appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks. And you know what? With people here in Wyoming and Casper, they might not know who you are. So would you mind giving yourself a little bit of a shameless plug here? Tell everybody what you specialize and how to reach you.
You bet. So anyone can, of course, follow this podcast, The Heart of Money, to hear more about what I do and where I'm from and who I am. And for anyone who is out there in the western side of the country who does not know about this old Missouri boy, you can go to freedommoneycoach.com. I've got several free resources there. Some of which you'll hear on this show. Got a masterclass. I got some free trainings. And then obviously you can book a free discovery call with me on there as well. Check us out. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Alignable, going to be on TikTok soon. So wherever you want to go, we're going to be there too, I'm sure.
Nice. Awesome.
Great, Jessica. Thanks for being here, and we'll catch you again later.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you.
Hey, folks, did you find today's episode valuable? If so, I would truly appreciate it if you left a 5-star review and shared the episode with a friend. My goal is to help as many couples as possible in their journey to gaining complete control of their money. Also, I have a free gift that I want to share with you for taking the time to listen to today's show. I have a brand new video training that outlines 5 steps for making a budget that will give you true financial freedom. In this training, I share how you can create a budget in a matter of minutes and make it easy to implement. Who doesn't want that, right? You'll learn what categories you need to cover all the bases each month and how to protect yourself against financial stress. You can access your free gift at freedommoneycoach.com/budget guide. That's freedommoneycoach.com/budget guide.